Hello, let's take a quick look at our liquidity risk system, what capabilities it has, and how it works. There are actually three major sources of risk as far as liquidity risk, as far as liquidity is concerned. The first one is related to margin calls that you may have to face concerning your derivatives or other positions requiring margin. Number two is potential redemption requests by your investors. And number three is refers to market conditions, refers to the bid-offer spreads, actually widening spreads that or other change in prices due to your own efforts to liquidate a position. Now let's analyze each one of these sources of risk more in detail and see what the system does to address them. The first one, the first source of risk is the margin calls. So here the solution is to use our system to replicate the margin requirements, either the initial margin or the variation margin. We have replicated a large number of margin algorithms used by all major and many minor even exchanges around the world. Most of these are based on the span methodology and some variations from one exchange to another. So once you have the margin algorithm and you can use it, the idea is to apply stress test scenarios on the margin algorithm where you may modify the prices of underlying factors and see how this might affect your variation margin. You may also change model parameters. These are the parameters that are used to create the so-called vector files or the margins and see what kind of effect that might have on your margin calls. You may also modify other parameters like add-on factors, which are often used by prime brokers to request a higher margin from you than the margin that would be required by strict application of the algorithm. And finally, your stress test may include scenarios regarding the values of the collateral you have posted, which might mean that you might need to post additional collateral in some stress situations. And finally, it should also take into account limits that you may have for using margin without posting collateral. The second risk concerns, of course, the potential redemptions requested by your investors. One way we address this risk is by borrowing a concept from Basel III, which is this liquidity coverage ratio, the LCR. It's originally developed for banks, but it can be used for funds as well. So what is measured? This is the ratio of high quality liquid assets. So this means the assets that you can easily sell in the market, divided by the potential cash outflows over a 30-day period under stress situation. And this ratio needs to be at least 100% in order for you to be safe. So for the stress scenario, in order to measure the cash outflows, we need to combine an idiosyncratic and market-wide shock at the same time. So, for example, this would mean poor performance over your fund for one period or some kind of negative report that came out. You must estimate what kind of outflows you may have due to this, or increased volatilities in the market causing increased collateral haircuts, or maybe increased collateral posting. Maybe you'd have to face reduced credit facilities and other factors. Regarding the numerator, the stock of high quality liquid assets, what can we consider as a high quality liquid asset? Well, for this, we can eventually borrow the parameters that are used in Basel III for this purpose. Another way we can monitor the redemption risk and the impact on liquidity of the fund is to build, again, stress scenarios with various redemption patterns for each sub-fund and the holdings fund, if that's the structure that you're having. In order to build these stress test scenarios, we need to take under account the notice periods of each fund, the maximum allowed redemption request according to each fund's policy, eventually expected cash inflows from the sale of shares or any other factors, credit lines, of course, that may be in place and how these may change, as well as market conditions. We can assume normal market conditions in order not to have other impacts on this stress test report, or we can incorporate as well at the same time other market conditions. So here on the right, we can see the result of such a stress test. We can see two tests here, scenario A and scenario B, and we can see the redemptions and the remaining, and also the remaining net asset value of the fund for each month for the next year under these two stress test scenarios. A third source of liquidity risk is the manager's ability to sell his investments. This may be due, some difficulties may be due either to widening bid-offer spreads due to market conditions, or because of a large position that, in order to be unwinded, will result in moving the price against the manager. This is a nice chart here which clearly shows these two concepts. So to the left, on the left side of this chart, we can see the two straight lines representing the bid-offer spread. So up to that point, we have a relatively small position, a position which does not influence the prices, but nevertheless, there is some kind of bid-offer spread in the market that would affect us, and this spread may, of course, widen under stress conditions. However, if our position is quite large, the more we move to the right side of this chart, then the spread may widen further because of us, actually. So the manager trying to liquidate his large position may cause a movement in prices against him. The way that the system approaches the exogenous part of the liquidity, meaning that we have an average size or a small position, but nevertheless there is a bit of a spread in the market, the way we handle this is to introduce the bid-offer spread as a risk factor in the system together with all other risk factors. So this means that this factor will also have its own volatility and its own correlation with each other factors, and it will be included in value at risk calculations, which will not only take under account potential movements of the mid price, which is typical for all value at risk systems, but by introducing this, the value at risk will also take under account potential widening of the bid-offer spreads. Besides typical variations of the bid-offer spreads explained before, there are other causes that may cause anomalies in the prices of various securities. One of these causes is the margin requirements, where different margin requirements on different securities, increasing or decreasing, may cause movements in price. And the other type of regular activity that may influence prices in a strange way is the delta hedging activities, which means buying an asset when its price goes up and selling when prices go down, when its prices go down. And this can become even worse when many players in the market have the same side of position. So this might have a quite dramatic impact on the price. There are different approaches in the market to address this kind of situation, like the use, for example, of liquidity-adjusted returns, or the weighting of bid-offer spreads depending on the trading volume. But our preferred approach, the approach which we have implemented in risk value, is to vary the time horizon for VAR depending on the instrument. So instead of, for example, using the typical 10-day VAR or any other horizon used, this needs to be adjusted depending on the instrument. So for each instrument, we hold a table of what kind of volume could be liquidated in the market without having a significant impact on its price. For any additional information, please do not hesitate to contact us, either visiting our website or by contacting us at any of the addresses which are indicated here. I do hope to hear from you soon.